So one of the questions I get asked quite often is how can I get the best performance out of my hand plane? So today we're going to focus on just the bench plane. I have a bench smoother here and just your regular number 3 bench plane, and we're going to set them up to get wispy smooth shavings, very fine shavings. And I'm going to assume that you've already sharpened your plane blade. If not, I have a great sharpening video, which I'll link right here, that will walk you through a great way to sharpen. The one thing to know about sharpening the back of a hand plane blade is that you don't need to get the whole thing flat. You just need to get the last teeny little bit. Rob Cosman has a great way of sharpening a hand plane blade where you just get the very, very tip of the back and you're good to go. With a chisel, when you sharpen the back, it's important that the area that you're going to use is flat. So the first inch or so on a chisel needs to be flat. But with a hand plane, you're really only using the very, very tip of the hand plane to make contact with the wood. So we're going to talk about how to set these up as essentially a smoother. This isn't going to be how to remove a lot of material or joint. This is going to be how to get really wispy smooth shavings with a finish ready surface. So these surfaces will be ready for finish and smooth as a baby's behind. So let's come into the bench and get this thing started. So first let's talk about plane direction. So I have a couple pieces of maple here, and you can see the grain lines here go like this, and they come in contact with the top of the surface. Now, it's like petting a cat. These are the hairs. You wouldn't want to pet a cat backwards. So you're going to plane in this direction, which will then sever the fibers as you go over them rather than peeling them up. You don't want to peel up the grain because wood is sort of made like a rope. It has a bunch of teeny little fibers that run in the direction that the tree grows. I can tell that the tree, this was the up direction of the tree because as it grew up and out to the branches, it went like this. Same thing here, same kind of grain pattern. And so you want to plane in the direction that severs the fiber, or the common analogy is don't pet the cat backwards. You want to pet the cat forward, or the Katz-Moses for that matter. Same thing on the side of the board. You can see the grain goes like this and comes off the board. So you would cut in this direction. Same here, you can see it goes off the board like this. So you would cut in this direction. So now that we have that settled, let's talk about the anatomy of a hand plane and how to set it up to be a wonderful smoothing plane. I have 2 planes here. This is kind of a new mid-level plane. I wanted to show you this one because it is not my favorite plane, but I want to show you that I can get it to do really amazing things. This is a Bailey number 3 that I restored. There'll be a video linked here in the corner of the restoration of that. If you're just getting into hand tool work, nothing wrong with restoring planes. I kind of subscribe to the buy once, cry once philosophy. So once you've restored a couple planes and you feel like you're getting decent with it, get yourself a real good hand plane and you will be a happy person. A really good hand plane really does make a difference, but there's no reason you can't take a 100-year-old plane or a mid-level plane and make them great smoothers. So all planes have a lever cap. That is this one here, or on the Stanley, this one here. And that just comes off. This is the screw here that holds it. You never want to adjust that screw. That should be able to just pop your cap on and off and without having to adjust that. If you have to loosen it to take this cap off, then your screw is too tight. Then under there you have your blade and a chip breaker. You want to be careful when handling these. 1, they can cut you. 2, you don't want to ding your edge. So those just come off like this. And then behind that you have your frog. And in your frog, these will both have a lateral adjustment. That's this lever and this lever here. So it may seem a little counterintuitive, but you want to push the adjustment lever towards the side that is too far into the wood. So whatever is cutting too much, you push towards that way and it will lift that corner up. Then here you have the frog. The frog is what supports the blade and allows you to open or close the mouth. On an old plane, you use the frog to open and close the mouth. There's an adjustment back here. You would loosen these 2 screws and push that forward. The further forward it is, the better at smoothing it's going to be. The further back, the better it's going to be at removing material. A plane like this, I'm going to flip it over. Instead of an adjustable frog, has an adjustable mouth. And by loosening the hand knob here, you can open and close the mouth, which is kind of the same as adjusting the frog on an old plane. It's a little bit easier on these newer planes, and I love this feature. So then you have your plane blade, and it's important to know there's a chip breaker here, and they're easy to get confused. On the older planes, it's a lot harder to get them confused because it has a little concave here. It's important that the flat of your blade, the tip, is in contact with your blade the whole time. Some of these older plane blades, they'll get bent up a little bit, and that allows chips to get stuck under there. So you want this edge to be flat against your plane blade the whole time. On these newer planes, it is definitely easier to get these two confused. You loosen this screw here, you open it up, and then slide it out. But if you look at these two, they look very much alike, but it's important to look at the back. You can tell this is a chip breaker. When your plane blade goes into your plane, the way to know which way is up is the logo is always going to be showing. No company is going to not want to promote their product. You can think about it that way. The logo will be showing up. And that was a great way I learned about explaining this from my friend Matt Eslia, who has a great YouTube channel and is a very good hand tool woodworker. You should watch some of his stuff. But yes, when you are doing a bevel up plane, I'm sorry, a bevel down plane, bevel up would be like your low angle planes. This is a bevel down plane. So the bevel faces your wood, logo goes up, and your chip breaker goes on top. Now here's how you want to set your chip breaker, and this is a tip that I learned in person from Chris, the Third Coast Craftsman, is you want to get that thing within about a hair's width of the tip of your blade. You want it to get really, really, really close there. So you can see there that I'm really, really close. You obviously don't want to go over, and if your chips have sort of this accordion pattern to them, you're probably a little too close, but you want to get within just a hair's width there, and then you're going to tighten that down nice and tight with your screwdriver. So we're going to just tighten that down. There we go. That's perfect. Now we're going to stick that back in our plane, being very careful not to ding the edge. We're going to make sure it's on our lateral adjustment, and then we're going to go ahead and put back on our lever cap here. Same thing over here with our Bailey number 3. We're going to make sure that our bevel is facing the correct way. And I like to just hand tighten this knob here before you start adjusting. It helps kind of things go a lot slower. So we're just going to get that really, really, really close to the edge before we tighten that down all the way with our screwdriver. And with this plane, before we stick it in, we're going to adjust our frog, which you do by loosening these two screws here, just like this. I'm going to flip the plane around, and you can see this screw right here. That is what adjusts your frog forwards and backwards. And I'm just going to adjust it forward just a little bit, just so that we can get the mouth closed a little bit. And then I'm going to retighten my screws here. When you're doing this, you want to ensure that this frog is square to the plane. Now we're going to stick our blade back in, and here's where you can tell if you need to adjust the frog at all. It looks like I probably went forward a little too much there because I'm not going to be able to get that plane blade out. So I'm going to adjust that backwards. Now we'll get that in there and put our lever cap back on. Now we need to talk about how to set up the blade. And what we're going to do first is flip the plane blade over. Now we're going to adjust the squareness of our blade left to right. And so what I've done is I've advanced it all the way out here. And you can see the blade sticking out of the plane right here. That is the plane blade. And as I back it up, I'm going to back it up all the way here. You're going to see that shadow just disappear. There it goes. And I can see that my plane blade is too high on this side, so I'm going to move it away from it. So we'll advance the plane blade out, and you can see it come out there, and then we're going to make it disappear and make sure that the blade goes away at the exact same time on both sides. I can see just a little bit there more. There we go. And that should be pretty square. Okay, now when it comes to the mouth of the plane, whether you're adjusting your frog or you have a self-adjusting one like this, you want to bring in the mouth so that it just leaves about a hair's width of space in between there. So you can see there's just enough for a chip to get through, and that's going to be a good place to start. If you're having a tough time passing chips through, you can open it back up a little bit. Or if you're getting tear out, you can close it up some. So let's go ahead and plane some wood and see how we're doing. Okay, so now that we have our plane blades set to square and we've backed them all the way off, so you want to make sure your plane blade is all the way back. And the reason is because there's backlash in these types of screws when you're bringing your blade back or forward closer to the wood. And so if you try and adjust it while you're doing, there's a bunch of play. So you'll see, I'll show you on this plane, it's much less on the old Stanley. So I've backed it all the way off. This is engaged going backwards. I'll tell you when I hit forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. I just hit going forward again. Advance it so that you're going forward. And same thing here, we'll do that. And then you're gonna go ahead and very slowly, I'm talking in 1/16 to 1/8 of a turn at a time, advance the plane blade until you contact wood. So there we go. We're just starting to contact wood. Now, to make sure that your blade is square, what you can do is go on the right side of your board. And you can see I'm getting a big shaving there, and then I'll go on the left side and I'm getting almost nothing. You want to go towards the side that is too far into the wood. So we're just going to adjust that just a little bit. We're going to check our left side again. Now we're getting a big shaving. Check our right side. So we're getting a big shaving. So that means we are too far advanced, but we are square now. So I'm going to back that off and then take out the backlash. We're just going to go until we get wood. And there we go. We're just starting to get super wispy shavings. And that is how you get super wispy shavings on a smoothing plane. Look at those. Those are gorgeous. I got a pair of calipers here. Let's see how thick these shavings are. Wow. 2 1/1000ths. I bet we could get them thinner, but that's pretty incredible. There's nothing like the joy of getting nice wispy shavings out of a hand plane, because if you feel this surface, it's just absolutely perfect and ready for finish. You don't need to do any sanding to that. So let me just show you with the newer Stanley real quick to refresh. We've backed it all the way off, and now we're going to start going forward until we hit wood. There we go. We're just starting to hit wood, so I'm going to try the right side here. We're not getting anything. Left side here, we're just getting a little bit. So we're going to go towards that just a teeny amount. So let's advance it a little bit further. And there we go. We're getting just gorgeous, gorgeous, thin shavings. That's probably even a little thick. We could back that off. Take the backlash out, go back to our forward position. Let's look at those. I mean, that's as good as it gets right there. That is, wow, 5/10 thou, is that what that is? 0.0005, that's incredible. One thing to note, guys, is if you get shavings like this is one from before we started shooting, that look like an accordion. That means your chip breaker is too far forward. You don't want that accordion look. It means that the chip breaker is jittering in there. So you back that off just a super small amount, and you should be dialed. Guys, there is nothing more joyful in woodworking than getting silky smooth shavings from a well-tuned hand plane. I mean, it's just so enjoyable. I love doing that. I can't even stop to shoot this video. Thanks for watching, guys. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you have any other type of hand tools you'd like me to talk about, how I set them up and get them working, please leave it down in the comments. This was from a viewer suggestion. A 14-year-old kid really wanted to know how to set up a hand plane, and I realized that when I started woodworking and using hand tools, that was the most frustrating thing about it, was I couldn't get my hand planes to work. I couldn't do it. And it started with sharpening, and I linked that video up here in the corner. I have a great sharpening video. But then it was just simple basic stuff like where the chip breaker should go, opening and closing the mouth, and that kind of thing, and how to align the blade correctly. And when I figured those things out, a hand plane becomes such an important tool in the workshop. In fact, I'm doing this project right now where I'm building a 3D engrain cutting board for the International Maker Station, and the pieces have to be dialed to the 100th in width. And when I get one that is just like a thou too big, I can take a really sharp hand plane and just take a really, really small cut. That was actually a pretty thick one, but you see how sharp that was. I mean, that was like no pressure at all. I was able to make that cut. So hand planes can be an incredible tool for the hybrid woodworker. Somebody uses power tools most of the time, but when you just need to dial something in, or you don't want to sand for an hour and you just want to get something nice and smooth really quick, they are unbelievably helpful. So guys, thanks for watching. Stay safe in the shop. If you're new here, please subscribe. We'd love to have you. Have a wonderful day, guys. I'll see you next time.